Okay, hey guys. I decided to basically make like a short video on my enlistment process thus far. Um, Really to help anyone who is in the middle of like enlisting or thinking about enlisting and the whole process that you have to do or whatever. And even, but well, I guess I could say more so for like my personal memory and experience for me to like look back on once I go through everything and to see, you know, how I feel about it basically. Um, and again, mostly from memories. But I started my enlistment process a little over a month and a half ago now. I went back. Well, I guess I could say I restarted it. I originally started enlisting as reserves when I was still in school. I went to college at Coastal Carolina, and so I started while I was down there. But I didn't get to finish. I took my ASVAB and all of that though. Later that year, I found out I had gallstones, and so I had to have my gallbladder surgically removed. And so that really kind of pushed me back and hindered me from being able to leave and finish all the rest of my paperwork. And you have to wait 6 months if you have like any type of surgery like that with no types of complications for you to be able to try and re-enlist or start back enlisting again. And so my 6 months was just recently up and I'm back at it. The only change that I'm doing this time, I decided to do active duty instead of reserves. Um, that's just for my own personal reasonings. And so I can say that if you're like switching from, originally starting to enlist with like a different branch or doing like reserves and then active or active and then reserves, do it as soon as possible because you have to be spiffed as they call it. And basically that's just like switching over all your records and things, for you them to like get your scores. Like for me, since I've already taken the ASVAB and everything, but basically to just get all my information to be able to continue building my profile and all of that type of stuff. They say it takes 72 hours. I will tell you now, it does not. At least for me, they had to send my spiff information to Fort Jackson. And so what they said normally takes about 72 hours ended up taking 2 weeks. Basically because you have to wait until they take the time to do it. And I'm not sure how that whole process works, but apparently it just takes them forever. I'm not sure if they do that with like new recruits coming in for like, I know they have to do like MEPS and all of that like almost every other day. That might slow them down a little bit, but 2 weeks is like a really long time for me. So I can tell you, if you have to be spiffed, do it as soon as possible because for me it took 2 weeks. Um, Once I got my spiff information back though, they was able to get all my information to continue building my profile, and they got my scores from when I originally took the ASVAB, and apparently they were good enough for me not to need to retake it again. I got an AFQT, I think of like 84 or something like that. So I'm not really sure how good it is, but they're like, yeah, it's good compared to the jobs I qualified for. Um, so, whatever. I got the job that I wanted, so it works for me. Once they get your information back from being spiffed, you basically continue building on your profile where you left off or having to go back and change whatever you need to change in the system. For me, they actually had to scrap me and start all over again because I was originally doing reserves and I was also had a friend, so our profiles were like tagged together since she was enlisting at the same time. We are going to do like the buddy thing, but things happened with her and she wasn't able to enlist, and so they had to like basically scrap my whole thing because it wouldn't like let them edit or take it off. And I don't know, something was going on with the system that day, so that made it even worse. And it ended up taking like 3 hours just for them to get it to work and for me to even start my profile. So yeah. Anyway, once you start doing that, of course you do like simple things like your address history, school, where you graduated from, the type of courses you took, um, your employment history, basically everything about you is really what they connect. Like if you have any tattoos or piercings, they're going to document those. Um, they're going to ask you all your types of medical questions. I can say too, going back to the tattoo thing, make sure you have like a reason or at least thought of whatever you're going to put down for why you got whatever tattoo, whatever it's supposed to mean to you, because I didn't know we had to explain why we got it and what it means to us. And so that was kind of like a surprise, trying to think of a reason of why I got it. Well, it wasn't so hard to think of a reason. I'm not going to say that. It's more so being on the spot and trying to come up with an understandable reasoning from their perspective of why I got it. And I have 9 tattoos, so that kind of took some time to try and think of when, why, and what all my tattoos like supposedly symbolizes. So just be prepared for that if you do have tattoos. Be prepared to not be able to get any more once you start your recruiting. Well, I would say you can still get some, but I would say once you do that sheet for MEPS saying what tattoos you have, where they are, you're not going to be able to get any more because they're not going to want to redo that paperwork. And once you go into MEPS and like finish and you're in the DEP program, you can't get none, period, from what I know. Not until you graduate AIT and you're just in the regular Army can you get tattoos. So just a word to the wise for anyone who's like a tattoo fanatic like I am. It's gonna hurt. Piercings too. I can say with the piercings, take them out before you start because your piercings have to be healed by the time you go to MEPS, like 100% completely healed. And of course, tattoos take time. Some of them can take up to a month to completely heal. And so just to kind of be prepared without any type of setbacks, do stuff like that ahead of time before you go ahead and start. I've taken all my piercings out, things like that. So that's kind of put me ahead of the game to a certain degree without having to worry about getting the MEPS and, well, this isn't, 100% healed yet. I wonder if they're going to like DQ me for that. They will apparently. So just be prepared for that, excuse me. But anyway, once you finish all your paperwork, you're going to go through it extensively. Like one day, it's not going to be enough. I was in there from 9 o'clock that morning and I didn't leave till after 5 and I still wasn't done. Also, I can say be prepared when you go in there to do your paperwork. Is when you do like your family history and your address history, you have to have someone who can basically vouch for you, saying they knew you when you lived there for that X amount of time. You can't reuse people in no portion of where they have to verify. You cannot reuse not one person, and you cannot use anyone who's a relative. So like teachers, anything like that, get their address because you have to have their address, you have to have a phone number and their first and last name. So get all that information before you go in. That will save a lot of time because I didn't know we couldn't use family members and you couldn't reuse people. So I thought that like for while I was at school, okay, my mom knew I went to school. You can't use your mom. You can't use any relatives. And I don't really know my professor's address to try and give them an address and phone number. So just a word to the wise, be prepared with a lot of people who can vouch for you and have all of their information because it will slow you down tremendously. You have to have someone to basically vouch for you, from education to address history. I know those two for sure. I can't really remember anymore. It was a minute ago when I did it, but I know I ended up having to have a lot of people. So again, be prepared because I definitely was not, and that took a lot of time to try and think of people like teachers and roommates and all of that kind of crap. But once you finish that, you basically start working on your profile for MEPS. which all of that goes in your profile, but like the medical history portion you go through, like if you ever had anything like that, I can stress to be like 100% honest on it, because the doctors at MAPS, or just the doctors in general, like within the Army, they can ask and pull your medical files from like a doctor that you list on there, and like go back and double check all of your answers. And if they find out that you lie like on there for anything, apparently you can face like charges and things like that for like a false enlistment. So just make sure that everything you answer to is the truth 100%. um but basically, once you do all that, you do like the fingerprint for like the FBI checks. Basically, it's bigger, way bigger than a background check, because if you've ever been like arrested, just gotten in trouble, period, with the law, that's going to come up. So even if it's been like expunged or anything too, I can say make sure that you tell them, because they will find out. It will come back with that FBI fingerprint. Um, I had a girl in my recruiting station that came in and she had her fingerprint done, and she had completely forgotten about a charge she got. And when her fingerprints came back, that charge from New York came back with her. So just make sure like all of that is squared away, and make sure you be truthful, because I can say if you have charges, that really limits the jobs that you'll be able to get. So kind of be aware of that. Um, let's see, that's pretty much it for the most part until you get the maps. And this video is getting kind of long anyway, so I'll make a second one. Bye.